What's going on? Welcome to the next video. In this video, I will be drawing Gojo from Jujutsu Kaisen. And for this, I decided to start with a circle. And usually, when I'm drawing these poses, sometimes I'll sketch it out roughly, but I like to always use different shapes for creating these poses. And I'm also using a reference for this also. And so right now, I'm going in and roughing in the different areas and trying to block in all the shapes as far as where his chest and shoulders and his neck and his head. Like circles for the shoulder, that center line. The center line is also what I like to add on all my drawings. I can add the center line to the front or to the back to show where the chest is going to go. Adding the cylinder for the arms. Kind of getting that placement of where things are going to go. Trying to roughen that little side area. Now at this point, where I have it now, and as far as where I have all the shapes, sometimes I won't make too many shapes. I'll make it just enough to where I can kind of figure out where everything is going to be placed. It's more of just a guiding point for what I can draw. And I kind of just use that to start adding in the different details. Like right now, like I already know where the nose is going to go. I mean, sometimes when I'm drawing the head or the circle for the head, I can add the line for the eyes, the line for the nose, and line for the mouth. And sometimes I'll add it depending on the position of where the head is shaped. Sometimes I'll even add a circle on the neck to indicate that the head is looking up or looking down. But right now his head is just moving to the side of the angle. So right now I'm just adding in the line work for the cloth to cover his eyes. I'm kind of just working my way around it. And just to always, or mainly just for me to not really try to erase as much. You'll see me kind of just moving in real slowly with the lines. Like I'm kind of just like this, like I'm going back and forth. And if it's, sometimes I'll go back and forth lightly, but then if I'm more confident with the line, I'll go over once and make the line darker. Adding in his little part of his jacket. His little neck collar. And it's always pretty relaxing just to draw it out and place things where they need to go. Now finish it off. His wrap on his eye. And normally when I'm doing the hair, I will do it lightly and go back over it with darker lines. But a lot of times, depending on what type of hair it is, I'll start with this, I guess, what's it called, the seam of the hair. I guess each person have it in a different spot, and I'll draw from that and start to lean outward, depending on what picture I'm doing. If it's more of a realistic picture, I'll do that. But for like comic book characters, anime characters, I'll kind of just create like an outline and then go off of that, and I'll just add shading to it to kind of thicken the hair. So right now I'm just adding like a little, all the spikes and curves. Try not to make it too much like a Dragon Ball Z hairstyle. Adding in the the hair pieces that come down past his the wrap on his eyes. Because normally when I'm start to color this, I would leave an outline of this the way it is without the cross hatching. But so sometimes I may color it with the cross hatch, but and then I know some artists also like to do that, but because I don't like to ruin my markers, because I know they ruin pretty fast when you do it that way. I like to just have an outline and then ink it, then start coloring it. So right now I'm working in the hand, and like you've seen my previous videos, if you've watched those, you know that I like to make like a box where the hand is, create a circle for the knuckles, and then start making cylinders for the fingers, and kind of just working my way around that. So because since his hand is on top of another hand, I quickly roughed out both hands and had that second hand there while I detail the hand on top. That way it's easy for me to figure out how the hand is placed on top of, whether it's an object or something that he's grabbing. So right now I'm roughing it in. And a lot of people would say they have difficulty drawing hands, but it's not too difficult once you draw enough of them and learn the shapes of the hand's movement. Then you can kind of figure it out. I don't know if you've seen in my last video where I've showed the tool I use to draw hands when I'm practicing drawing hands. And it's pretty good for figuring out the different shapes for the fingers and where it's placed and the movement of the hand. There's the tail on top. You can little fine details on the hand. Outlining it. I'm working on the clothing. And normally for clothing, and even though I'm working off of reference, it's some people will have a hard time drawing clothing even from reference. And the way I see it is, when you're drawing clothing, the clothing that you draw is more fluid than you're drawing the rest of the body. You can draw clothing and kind of just flow with the lines, as long as you know where the flow of the wrinkles go when you are drawing clothing. It's always like quick strokes. You can do these quick strokes, and you can erase a line if you want, because no line has to be locked in to what it is. You can just do quick strokes, and then after that you can figure out whether the lines or wrinkles make sense, because most wrinkles just flow with the body's movement, like curved lines. So right now I'm adding in the shading. I didn't do a lot of cross hatching. I kind of just shaded in one angle, just to put in the shadows where they are. And for a lot of shadows, sometimes I like to kind of outline where the shadow goes and then start adding the shadows within that outline. It's kind of a safer way of me seeing where the shadows are. It's kind of like I put an outline there, that way I can kind of get a gist of how that shadow may look on the character that I'm doing, and then I can kind of go in and finalize it, adding in the rest of the shadows and just cover it up. Now I'm darkening. This is when I darken the hair. Trying to make sure you get the lines just right. There's a little spiky hair. And this stage is close to being done, so that's why I'm darkening everything. This is like kind of like the darkening stage. I'm just darkening all the lines. I'm adding detail to the hair and to his um, headband that's covering his eyes. I start adding shading to that as well. And the shading to that is a little tricky because pieces of his head or his eye will kind of show through. So I'm kind of just drawing and shading to convey that. And especially when you're going off a reference, you have to still figure out where the shadows would go when you're shading it in this particular way. Just darkening it up. Adding in some more dark, fine lines to it. It's always satisfying when you get to that final stage to where you're just darkening it, because at that point you're done, and you just know that everything at that point now would just be details, shadows, shading, darkening lines, because you're done with what you have to do or what you need to do, and now you're kind of just messing around with it to fine tune it. And then by the time you get to the ink or go through with that process, that's where everything is fully locked in. Because once you ink it, you can't make any changes. At that point, it's done. Right now, I'm darkening the shadow on his head, whereas the cloth that he's wearing. That's one thing I like about this pencil is I can go over it with multiple passes and just get darker. And also based on your hand pressure also. So just darkening it up. Adding some small details. Because I always go back, and sometimes you may miss something. Whether it's you got something missing on his ear, or maybe the character has 4 fingers when he's supposed to have 5. I don't know. Go through it and keep looking at it. And sometimes I'll draw one picture and then wake up the next day and work back on it again, because sometimes when you go to sleep and wake up the next day with a fresh mind, you may see things that you didn't see the day before and just start making more changes the next day. So just fine tuning it some more, adding more shading. Just adding darker lines where I think the shadow would get darker. And now I'm adding shading to the hair to give it some volume. Just finding those small strands of hair where I can just add a little shade to. Don't want to get too crazy with shading the hair. I mean, you could shade the whole thing, and mainly since his hair is white anyway, you wouldn't want to do too much shading. Now, if his hair was black, I would probably just do one pass across the whole thing with the cross hatching. But since his hair is white, I have to watch how I shade. You don't want to shade too much with the hair. I'm just adding in some last minute wrinkles. darkening it up. I think I had forgotten that little piece in the back. The shadow where his neck meets his jacket. Sometimes I'll forget to put shadows in certain areas, and I'll figure out when I look at it, like why it's missing a shadow here. But that's it for this video. Want to see more like this? Hit the like button, subscribe. Take care.